Hi, today I wanted to show you a quick tutorial on how I edit a picture from start to finish. So I am going to be editing this picture to look like this picture. And how I do that is I'm just going to go ahead and drag the picture that I want to edit into my Lightroom library. So I usually start off in Lightroom to do my color editing, and then I go to Photoshop to do my skin editing and my body contouring. So what I'm going to do now that my picture is here in Lightroom is I'm going to go ahead and click on develop. The first thing that I want to fix is the cropping of the image. I can't remember what it's called exactly, but the framing is all wrong. So when you take a picture, you always want to make sure that your lines align with the lines from this crop. So that back door, I'm making sure it looks completely straight up by aligning it with the this crop tool here. Because the most important thing, well, one of the most important things in a picture is the framing. And then now I just want to make sure that her face is the center of the picture. So out of these 3/3, I want to make sure her face fits into the second third, and I'm going to do that by just slimming this down a little bit. And then I also don't want this crop to be too high. I don't want too much space above her head, so I'm just going to bring this down just a little bit. And I just do this by eye. After you've been doing photography for a while and you've been cropping pictures for a while, you'll start to get it. But just Google, if you don't know what I'm talking about, just Google the 3/3 rule pertaining to photography. I can't explain it very well myself because I'm not the one who wrote it, and I don't quite understand it very well, but I know that if you follow that rule, then your cropping will always be great with photography. I've seen a lot of great photographers that if they just followed the 3/3 rule, their pictures would be amazing and fantastic, but sometimes it kind of just lacks that because of that. Now, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to use my Chirosy presets, which are available on my website at chelseafern.com. I'm going to put the link in the description so you guys can go to my website and purchase them for yourselves. So under Chirosy presets, I'm just going to look around and see which one of these presets are going to go the best with my picture. These are the 10 main presets that I use for all of my picture editing. But yeah, so we're just going to go down the list. I like this one a lot. I'm going to have to keep this in mind. The darks are just a little bit too dark. Let's go to a non. I do not quite like this one that much. Let's go to Bryce. Kind of like it, but yeah, actually, you know what? I like this a lot. I'm going to keep that in mind. So I like Bryce and Adriana so far. I don't like this one. I don't like this one. I like this one a lot. Gabby. Naomi. I like it a lot. Olivia. It's cool, but it's not. Yeah, it's not it for me. Okay, so my favorite ones were Gabby and Bryce. Gabby and Bryce. I'm gonna go with Gabby. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna go with Gabby. And I'm pretty sure I made this exact preset specifically for this picture because this girl in the picture, her name is Gabby. I think I made it for her. So now that I've put my preset on, one thing that I do note is that my picture got darker. So if you hit the little /, or is that a backslash? Yeah, if you hit the backslash button on your MacBook, you can just look at the before and after and see what your picture looks like with the new preset. And as you can see, the shadows are way darker in the after than in the before. So I'm just going to bring the shadows up a little bit. I do not want her to be so dark that you can't even see her. I'm also going to bring the blacks up. You know what? Let me bring the shadows down a little bit. And let's just focus on bringing blacks up. So now let's do another before and another after. Okay, so I think we're good as far as like the blacks being up. The clarity might be a little bit too high for me, so I'm just gonna lower this a little bit, because clarity is another thing that messes with how dark some of the features can become in a person's face. So before after, we're just checking on how we're looking over here. Let me bring up the brightness on my screen a little bit. Okay, there we go. So whenever you're editing, you always want to make sure that everything is 100% clear. So you always want to make sure your brightness is where it's supposed to be, and you do want to make sure that your screen is well calibrated. And what that means is that you want to make sure that the colors that your computer shows you are accurate. And if you don't know what that means, that's fine. You'll just have to Google it. Sometimes most MacBook Pros are well calibrated, but sometimes you'll have to buy an external tool to help you with that. But it's really important to have a well calibrated machine when you are color editing. But okay, so what I just did just now, for anyone who missed it, is I clicked on the little brush button on the right hand side over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull up the shadows on this brush, and I'm going to use this brush to lighten her eye a little bit over here. The change is so subtle you can't quite see it just yet. But I pull it all the way up and now you can. Okay, so let's do it before, after, before, after. Alright, I like how we're looking so far. I think I'm satisfied with what this picture looks like so far, so I'm just going to go ahead and control click it and click on edit in Adobe Photoshop. We're going to take the picture to Photoshop now. Okay, now that we're in Photoshop, we're going to edit this picture using frequency separation. I did make a longer video not too long ago showing you every single detail on how I open frequency separation, but today I want to focus on making a quicker video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a frequency separation action. And what I do is I just go to my actions. I already have 2 of them here. And I'm just going to play that out. I'm just going to show you as if you already know how to get to this point. So if you already know how to use frequency separation, I use pretty much the same method that most people do, except I just use a different brush than most people. I use the mixer brush tool. So what I do is in my group here, I take off the opacity on high, I click on low, and then I have my mixer brush tool with all these settings at the top. I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger. I usually like to start off on the legs. So let me just get a brush that's as big enough to cover my legs, or her legs. My bad. Why is it on clone? I was trying to use this brush. Okay, so now that we have our mixer brush tool, we're just going to mix, 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 blend, blend, blend. So I use this mixer brush tool as if I were using a blending brush to put on foundation, because that's just basically how it works. It just blends in the skin basically, and by blending it in and mixing it all up together, it gives it this flawless look. Now let's make this brush a little bit smaller, because we've gotten to a smaller part of the leg. You always want to make sure that the brush that you're using is appropriate and adequate for whatever it is that you're going to be editing. Subtle edits on hands and legs and stuff like that. Subtle edits on everything, actually, because my main goal is to try to leave the person looking as natural as possible. If that's not your goal, you can obviously go a little bit harder than I am, and take a little bit more time than I am. But if you don't really care, oops, my bad. So I made a mistake. I'm going to go on my history And I'm going to undo that mistake by just clicking back to a point in history that makes more sense for me. Okay, now we're just going to edit her chest a little bit. So while it's kind of soft like this, you can't quite see the edits. So we're just going to do a before and after so you guys can see what we've done here so far. I just blend this in a little bit more. I feel like it looks a little... Oopsie days, I did a little too much over here. Okay, sorry about that. I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, you guys. Okay, so now we're going to put the high back on. I'm going to click off of the opacity here so you guys can see this is the before, this is the after. This is what the leg looked like before, and this is what the leg looks like now. Very subtle changes, but very effective. Same thing on the face. We're just going to make this brush a little bit smaller so we can get into the crevices in between fine lines and whatnot. Now, this mixer brush tool can really help you edit in an amazing and a crazy way. I personally like to keep it very, light to preserve, naturalness. But for those of you that like to get that super duper like high-end magazine type look or whatever, feel free to keep, to go harder, to keep going or whatever. Because this tool can really bring you many different kinds of results. It can either, give you the naturalness that you might be looking for, or it can give you some, crazy stuff. Just depends on how hard it is that you're actually editing. Okay, so let's click back on. This is the before, this is the after. Before, after. So very subtle changes, but they are there. So what I'm going to do now is I want to get rid of her line right here. So I'm just going to click on my healing brush tool. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller, and I'm going to go in on while I'm clicked on high, and I'm going to sample a piece of skin that's nicer looking or clearer, and I'm just going to use that to clear these lines up. This is about as far as I'll go as far as, when I'm editing someone's face. Most of the time I don't like to take away anything that would make that person look unrecognizable. But if it's just like a thin, super thin line like we just had just now, then I have no problem leaving it. Taking it out. And also these lines up here, I'm just going to get rid of that. Option click, get rid of this. Get rid of that. Get rid of this. Now her freckles and stuff, we're just gonna leave those. Do I want to get rid of this? I think I probably do. Okay, we're just gonna get rid of this. Okay, perfect. Did I miss something? Okay. Alright, you guys, so this is what it looks like now. This is before the frequency separation, and this is after. Before, after, very subtle hints, because her skin was already really clear to begin with, so I really didn't have to do much. But if you have someone with, a worse skin tone or a worse skin situation taking place, this editing tool that I just showed you is the best way to get rid of anything big or small. Alright, so I'm done editing. I'm just going to go ahead and click on File. I'm going to click Export, and I'm going to click Save for Web. And just like that, we're going to save the picture. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you learned something. I hope you liked what you just watched. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.